All right. Really? What do you mean network connection is bad? Ah, fuck. This happens every fucking week. All right, how you guys doing? We're gonna do a presentation. I'm gonna try to fix my camera here. We're gonna do a presentation today on and bear with me. I'm trying to fix my camera here. Sorry about that, but I had a hard time getting it. We're gonna basically talk about moisture intrusion in your home. We're gonna talk about why we have odor problems in our homes. We're probably going to try to solve your house problem. I mean, maybe your house is perfect, but most people's house is not perfect. Many people have moisture issues, and we're going to talk about a little bit today. So this class is going to be called Residential Moisture Intrusion Building Science, and we're going to do some forensic investigations. If you stick with me today, you'll probably answer most of your house problems, most of your mold problems, and most of your odor problems. This is a Jim and Marco show. We travel around the country and we teach classes to home inspectors. And this is just one of our presentations. We have many. Jim will not be here today. I'll be doing this alone. And I don't know if you guys know us, but we're both inspectors. Jim's got me by probably 5 years and maybe like 2,000 or 3,000 home inspections. But we've both been doing this for over 30 years. We have all types of licenses. Jim's got a master's. I'm a civil engineer. I got a degree. And we're both licensed in radon lead. And we do a lot of inspections throughout the Cleveland area. Also, I do provide for you internet people. If you have house problems, I do have a service called just Google call Marco with a question, and usually we can solve your problem within 15 minutes. So you can check it out. Call Marco with a question, and I'll try to help you out. So today the goals are going to be, I'm going to try to make you a little bit more knowledgeable about moisture intrusion, and we're going to try to gain a little bit of understanding what building science is. And all our homes are going to have some of these issues. Now, some of these pictures, I have a lot of cool photos. If you look at this picture, most of you think this is just plumbing. It's not. Those gray pipes are called polybutylene plumbing. They're put in the 70s and 80s. We're talking lots of homes have them. And this stuff fails in the wall and causes failure. Leaks, they become fatigued when the sun hits them, and these couplings right here break. And we're talking, once they break, your house is going to flood. So if you've got this polybutylene or PB plumbing in your home, you got to remove it. The goals also are going to be accomplished by some of these following objectives. We're going to try to identify various methods, how moisture can get into your house, and we're going to describe what building science is. And we're going to give you some studies. Now here, this is kind of, some of us, hey, Vladimir, Ted, Nick, how you guys all doing? Thanks for coming on today. A lot of homes are older in Cleveland, in our they had galvanized plumbing, some have brass, but this galvanized plumbing eventually starts to corrode and it gets replaced. And the minute you put in copper and mix it, you have a free electron and you get corrosion. So this could be happening in your walls. When they happen in your walls, then they leak. So any homes that have galvanized plumbing, you have to redo the whole line. You just can't do parts of it. And a lot of people be behind this house, all right? And there's a close-up of the two houses. I inspected that house and they actually built that. I've done 17,000 home inspections, so I've pretty much seen all of it. So why do we need to, we need to know all this? Well, we're going to have thermal insulation problems. Houses are tighter today. We have different types of chimney. The old chimneys, they were hotter. And now we've got these efficient furnaces, 95%, 80s, and the stack temperatures drop, so you get condensation. You ever wonder why your top of your chimney's spalding? Yeah, because the temperature's lower and it's freezing. We have different heating systems, different cooling systems. And basically, the houses are completely different. And today, our houses just don't hold as much moisture. The old house used to hold moisture. Now, here's an example. 1600s, wood. Here we're going to 1900. Here we're going to, this would be pretty much a steel house that's glass and all types of materials. So what happens is like this house, this will hold a lot more water. That'll hold more water. But these houses today don't hold water. So the minute you get some water, you have a big problem. All right. We have newer materials. For example, the older materials were like in those pictures you saw, masonry, block, plaster. If they get, for example, they'll hold water. Nothing happens. It's like a storage capacitor and it slowly dissipates in or out and dries. The new materials today are plastic, wood, Hardie board, masonite, steel, okay, plastic, rubber roof. So it doesn't take a whole lot of water to cause a problem. By the way, this is a typical attic you're looking at. And if you notice here, they put the insulation. A lot of you people have this, especially in your 60s and 70s, 1960s, 70s, 50s. You put the insulation in the wrong spot. And what happens if there's no ventilation and you have a humidifier, see there's no vents down here, you're going to get mold. So check your attic to make sure you don't have mold, especially when the insulation is installed improperly. Back to how much water we hold. Now here's a masonry structure. I did a calculation, and I took a masonry structure with 2,000 square foot house, and if it rains or whatever, it's going to hold 500 gallons of water and nothing's going to happen. Then we go to 1930 frame. That house will hold the same, it'll hold 50 gallons, way less than this structure that's earlier. Today, 5 gallons. You see 550. So it doesn't take a whole lot of water to cause a problem in this house. This house could handle a lot more. That's why the older houses were more tolerable. So basically, the buildings can't handle as much water today. We're insulating our house. We've got a lot of glass. Now we're putting up steel roofs. We've got, all types of building materials. All right. And so this is continue on. So there's a couple rules we need to think about. Gravity is always going down. We know that, right? On Earth, everything goes down. Moisture flow goes from warm areas to cold. I'm going to show you that a little bit later. And moisture goes from more to less. I know it's we're going to get into that. Okay, I'm going to give you some great examples. A heat flow is from warm to cold, and airflow is from high pressure to low pressure. Really important stuff. Now, a lot of people don't understand this, but moist air is lighter than dry air. So it dries. Hey, Terry, how you doing? So it rises. That's why it rains. That's why there's clouds. People think it's like heavy and it goes down. No, it goes up. So when you got your sub pump, and I know a lot of you have these sub pumps in your basements, big problem if you don't cover this 100%. If you're not covering this with 100% sub pump lid, then you're going to have moisture rising no matter what. And this is connected to 100 feet of pipe around your house at 80% humidity, and this can cause mold in your house. This can cause odors. This can cause condensation on your windows. And then if you take a camera, this is what you see. This goes underneath your house, and there's like 100 feet of this full of water and moisture. And so you need to have a radon cover on there. Here's me doing a smoke test. Now most of your houses, you got your furnace in your basement, so your cold air returns aren't sealed. You close the door upstairs, and the minute your furnace kicks on, all those cold air returns, nobody seals them. So it sucks your basement. Look what it's doing. This thing, that's a smoke test, and it's sucking the humidity. If you test this air coming out, this is the air around your house, underground, in the dirt, probably got, radon in it too, right? And you can see how it's just getting sucked from the heating system. So this is like, you're sucking in 80% humidity. So this becomes a humidifier. You don't even need a humidifier to cause problems in your house. So building science, we're going to talk about gravity, momentum, capillary action. We're going to talk about absorption, tension, air movements, air pressure, vapor pressure. I know these sound like big words, but you're going to see how this all comes together. Chimneys. This is gravity, right? Well, if your roof is getting old and your flashing is bad, it's going to leak. This guy's lucky because he could see this. But if this is in your wall, you're going to have moisture, you're going to have mold, it's going to stink. You're going to have a problem. Okay. So let's talk about gravity. And gravity basically goes down. And this is just an example. You want to build houses to handle gravity. Unfortunately, most of our homes, they don't. In Cleveland, all our homes don't have weep holes, except for the new homes. So that's a brick siding. It's supposed to have a hole on the bottom, or a rope's coming out, so the water goes behind the brick. Here's your house, and that's your living room in here. And then it leaks in our house into our basement. You're supposed to have a flashing here and a weep hole. Well, guess what? We don't have this in Cleveland. So a lot of our brick homes are just built wrong. And so, we need to think about what's causing this. Now, if you got another example of gravity is, if you got a brick, lintels crack in your homes. And if you don't seal these, water's going to go into this lintel and crack and go inside. So, and this is the southern exposure. The rain hits this, and then you can see that's a thermal image of all the water that's going around the window. It's moisture here. And if you got on the inside of the wall, you're going to have insulation. It's going to get trapped. You're going to have drywall. You're going to have mold. It's going to stink. All right. And of course, gravity. We know about this gravity. Hey, if the toilet leaks, you're right. And so I'm getting phone calls, so I'm sorry. When I get them, I'll try to get rid of them. So now, here's a kind of a crazy leak. People, sometimes it's not a roof that leaks. Now, here's an example of a roof, okay, that they paid the roofers, 3 or 4 roofers, and they totally missed the boat on this. You got to sometimes think outside the box. So they replaced the roof 3 times. It still leaks, so then they called me up. There's your roofers looking. Oh my God, what's going on? This is the third time we did this, right? So I show up like, hey, look, there's an air conditioner here. So I dump water in the air conditioner, and it's leaking. So leaking through the air conditioner. So sometimes you got to think outside the box where the leak is coming from, not from the roof. And this is another outside the box one here. Here's a wall. This is on top of a flat roof. Okay, and this guy's fixing it, and they're redoing the roof, and they think it's leaking here. It's not leaking here, man. It's leaking up here. And he's like looking at this. How does that work? I don't understand. So I dump water on here, a cup of water. Look, the water disappears. It gets sucked into those joints. Those joints are very porous. They suck the water in. And after it rains for 5 hours in the southern exposure, you're going to have gallons and gallons of water behind this brick. And it runs behind the brick. Okay, and there's no weep holes. Remember those weep holes are missing? And it goes inside, and this is the sacristy, and it's leaking in the sacristy. And so it was an easy fix. It wasn't the roof that wasn't leaking. It wasn't the flashing. It was the brick sucking in the water, and it's been doing it forever. And it's like, so what you do here is you paint the brick or you seal the brick. So sometimes your moisture stains and your leaks and your mold aren't. You got to think outside the box, okay? Momentum and force. In other words, wind-driven rain. And you got to build your houses, so you can handle it. These are I'm not an artist, okay? But if you have a hole in your house, this is your siding that's going to blow it in, right? The wind's going to push it, and the pressure's going to push it, and it's going to leak in. But if we build a house with the curve, or we build a house, with designs that don't let water go through, okay, then it's not going to leak in. So, this would be a typical example of a foundation, the way, your foundation footer and your block goes on top of that. You want to put a keyway in there, okay? And a keyway. And sometimes people waterproof keyways. Surface tension. No one ever thinks of that, but surface tension means that it just sucks right in. So if you got a little crack right here, and the water's leaking, it's just going to suck in like a vacuum and sit right inside your house. So you want to make it so there isn't surface tension. So you want to, again, design your house this way. These are just examples of some designs. And unfortunately, builders don't design houses right. So here's a surface tension one. And what happens here is this guy here builds, this is funny because it's like 30 units were built like this, and they're all built the same, and they're on an Avon, and apparently the sewer drain from the upper floors is in this wall in every unit, and then the closets they just fastened the shelving to it and put a hole right through it, and so then the sewage was coming down and hit the screw that was inside the sewer pipe. This is when a toilet flushes, and then the mold would leak out and leak inside the wall, outside the wall, and it was a huge problem. Okay, so every 30 unit we had to fix this. And here's a close-up of it. And you can see the screw and how the surface tension of the water came out from where the screw was drilled into. That's a screwdriver in the same hole. Yeah. Plus, this guy forgot to take the test caps off. When you test your new homes, you got to take these things off. We're gonna do some better stuff. I'm just trying to get through some of the rules, so maybe this is a little bit boring. But capillary action's another one. Kind of like you ever like do the little test in high school. You put like flowers and you put the ink and it gets sucked up, kind of thing. Well, it's the same thing. Brick's gonna suck it up. You can see how the outside air is getting sucked into the foundation. And so you want to build your house so that doesn't happen. All right. And of course, when you have failed mortar joints like that, you can see how water leaks in. And here's actually some weeds growing out. Now, one of our biggest problems we're having today, and we've got literally millions of homes with this culture stone. When they put this culture stone up initially, they didn't do it properly. They didn't, it was kind of like the EIFS problems. And I'm not going to get into the EIFS today. We'll do that another time. But the cultured stone, a lot of it did not have a proper rain screen or drainage plane. So you go to a house and you see mushrooms coming out of here, it's all rotten out back here. Now, you may not see it because it's inside, but sooner or later, you're going to be having to take all the stone off. And we do a lot of homes where you got to take all the stone off the whole front of the house. And when you ever see scaffold in these neighborhoods that are 10 to 20 years old, and they're scaffold in front of the house, that's what they're doing, man. They're popping the stone off because it's all rotted. So you want to do a survey. There are guys in town that do surveys on EIFS and on cultured stone. And now here's an example. Now, this is just like the brick. Here's me. Okay, and I'm dumping 2.5 gallons of water because we're trying to figure out where this water's going. And my client doesn't believe me, and the builder of this $400,000 house says I'm full of it. Well, I said, look, come here, give me 2 gallons of water. So I dumped 2 gallons of water here, and it disappears. He's like, whoa. I go, where'd that water go? I go, let me get my thermal imaging camera. And I show him the thermal. I go, there's your water, right all in here. And I go, hey, can I like cut a hole in your wall in your garage? Sure. So I cut a hole in there, and there's water dripping off the nail. Okay. So this stuff, and this is the southern facing. You got to remember, anything west and south gets a lot of wind-driven rain. And if it's not built right, it's going to leak, and it may take a while. So this was a leak and a rot. Now, this is another house. Same thing, cultured stone. And, you know, that's that, they call it slick 'em, stick fake stone, whatever you guys want to call it. If it's cultured stone is the word, or cultured cladding. And here you can see, how's this protected? They put the stone on, they put tar paper, it's not even sealed, and you can see how it's starting to rot out. And it won't, before you know, it's going to start falling off the house. And this is maybe 10, 15 years, okay? And here we're taking it off the house. You can see it's all molded and rotted. And that's what happens to your OSB. It just rots out. And, you know, we've got tons of these people, you know, all smiling and, you know, watching the Cavs game. And they're, you know, drinking their beer and hot dogs. And their whole front of their house is rotting out. And they don't even know it. So these are expensive homes. Cultured stone, you got to be very careful with. This is how we got to fix it. We got to take it off, all of it. Hey, Kathy, how you doing? You got to take it all off. We got to put a drainage plane and rain screen up. And so usually a front house repair, just for a number, you're talking $20,000 to $30,000. Here's Mr. I got to fix the culture stone house, and you can see how we've had to take it down, and we're replacing all the stone here. And it's not so bad, but 5 years from now, it's going to be bad. You spend $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 on a home. It better not be rotting. We're going to do one more little tester called air pressure. And hey, how you doing, Paris? Thanks for coming on again. Air pressure and vapor pressure. And I'll kind of skip all this, but I'll show you better, like pictures, okay? So here's a pressure problem. Nobody knows about this, but what you want to do is turn on your furnace, go to your door, sit on top of your steps, your basement, put a piece of toilet paper down there, and see if it's sucking in. If it is, then you got negative basement pressure. Your cold air returns aren't sealed, so you want to seal those. You want to open a supply register, change that door to louver door. You can't have negative pressure in your basement. If you do, it causes all kind of problems. It sucks moisture out of your sub pump. It sucks radon gas up your house. It causes positive pressure on your upper floors, and then you have ice dams, and you have mold in your attic, especially if you have a moisture generator, humidifier. So you want to fix your negative pressure in the basement, okay? A lot of people got ice dams, and you guys think, oh, they're natural winter ice dam occurrences. You know, they even make like Christmas lights that look like ice dams. They're not natural. They are screwed up houses that have improper building science. Here's a cold air return. You can see that little teeny hole. Add up all 500 of them. And it sucks your basement, and that toilet paper tells you. This is a little smoke test I'm using. I'm just showing you an example. There's a lot of them, okay? And we'll skip the movies here. So now we'll talk about vapor pressure. And basically, vapor pressure is caused by a lot of humidity. So as your humidity is higher, for example, this house here had, I don't know what these people were thinking, but they had a bunch of kids, and they had all their little precious baby, had these little moisture machines in all their rooms, and the house would just get all full of humidity. And when you get humidity, it's got to go somewhere, and if it goes to something cold, it condensates. And we're going to show you other examples, but you know what? These are bad. You want to be careful with humidity in your house. You do not want to have a lot of humidity. All right, and these same people also had. They had like a lot of pets, so you got water evaporating, they had plants, and they had a humidifier. And then they hired me to tell them why they kept washing mold from their windows. And I wanted to tell them, well, it's not just your windows that got mold on them. It's probably your attic and inside your walls. And if there's any missing insulation in the walls, you probably got dew point condensation and mold there as well. So I basically says, listen, you got to stop your moisture problem here. And so what happens is you get condensation, right? And it comes down and mold grows and it rots out your window. And that's one of the biggest problems with their Pellar windows. Now this attic here, this one here had a humidifier on the furnace. And another thing is your attic access, the panel, the pull down stairs. You can't just have a hole like that. You got to buy one of them boxes that go on top, or you got to have a zipper bag, or you got to have some type of sealed system, because if you don't, you're going to have escape of moisture into a non-conditioned space. And if there's snow on this roof and it's cold and you got humidity, it's going to condensate. When it gets condensate, it's going to grow mold. And once you grow mold, this is black mold. All mold is black, you know, or white. White's actually, in my case, this is more allergenic than this stuff here. But, you know, this is probably cladosporium, okay? Usually your slime molds are in your basement in cardboard boxes, like your penicilliums and your aspergilluses and your stackies. But all mold is bad, and you don't want mold, right? Here's what happens before the mold grows. You know, before the mold grows, the humidifier's on, or the baby water machines are on, you know, the vapor things. Or maybe you've got a ventless heater, okay? Or maybe you have a sub pump that isn't sealed, and you've got negative pressure because your cold air return sucking. So whatever your moisture source, we're going to hit some of these here in a minute, and then all of a sudden it goes up in your attic because your attic access isn't sealed, and you get condensation. That's frost. And then the frost is wet, and it's ice, and all of a sudden it gets sucked into the wood. And then cladosporium starts to grow there. And then if it stays wet a lot, other molds will take over. Mold's saprophytic. So molds have a little war, you know, like cladosporium is a 70% moisture content, but then, you know, Stachybotrys is 95. And if there's a lot more moisture, then Stachy takes over and starts eating the mold. And that's where you have the mold war, and that's that fancy word called mycotoxins. Well, mycotoxins are the word that molds produce to fight off other molds during mold wars. I didn't mean to get into a mold war here, but okay, vapor diffusion. Now this is pretty crazy, and we don't. I'm sure most of you don't have this problem anymore, but all our hotels had it. Vinyl wallpaper. You can't use vinyl wallpaper in Ohio or in cold weather climate zones, and the reason for that is that this brick gets all wet when it rains. Then the sun heats up the brick, and when it heats up the brick, then it causes vapor to increase. The vapor pressure increases and pushes through the house. And then if you got vinyl wallpaper and the air conditioner, it's cold, air conditioner, vinyl wallpaper, vapor diffusion, solar driven rain, all of a sudden mold grows behind it. You ever seen that mold on a wallpaper? You pull it off, you know, and it's full. I might have a picture of that here coming up. Now, this is another great idea. Here's these people that decided to put plastic on the insides of our homes. And how's that going to work? You know, they got the air conditioner inside, and it's hot outside, so then a dew point forms in your outside of your wall, and it rots out your whole house. This house is 10 years old. That's a sawzall. You shouldn't be using one of these things on a new house, all right? And you can see this house all rotting up because this doesn't happen all the time, okay? And I'll give you an example when it didn't happen. All right, see how that's all rotted out? That's because you put the plastic on the inside, plastic behind the drywall. Okay, an interior vapor barrier. Yes, we have hundreds and hundreds of homes in Medina, in Brunswick, in Avon Lake that got plastic on the insides of the walls, and nobody knows it. Okay, and some of them aren't rotting. Okay, but some are. This one here was this is a holistic woman who said that her house was rotting, and she would tell me where her mold was at. And she had the plastic on the inside. I knew that. And she says, I went to class and I did muscle testing. And so she's doing muscle testing, and she's doing a little magic potion trick. In the meantime, I'm checking it out, and I could feel that her hands are feeling this cold spot. So she's thinking she's doing muscle testing like it's mold, but it's not. It was a cold spot. They didn't want to tell her. So she said, the mold's right here. It's right here, right? So we had our contractor, and we're like, are we allowed to put holes in your wall? Well, let's look for your mold since you think it's there. I told her where the mold was at. It wasn't where she thought it was at. Matter of fact, she didn't really have a whole lot of mold. So we cut a hole right through the wall. There's our plastic. Bad idea. But look, they got lucky here. A lot of times that's full of mold. And that's where your carpenter ants are at. So a lot of people have ant problems. They got to think about where they're living. They're living with a moisture problem. And last week I did a show on ants, carpenter ants and pests. You guys should check it out. It's on YouTube now. It was about an hour long, and it was a really good show. And it will teach a lot about wood-boring insects. So that's hole number one. So okay, she does her muscle testing again, hocus pocus. Oh, the mold's right here. So let's open up hole number two. And we're, nothing in hole number two. She gives us another one with her hands. It's over here. I know it's over here. Hole number three. Oh, there's hole number four. We went to hole number five, still haven't found the mold. Hole number six. And we're just getting to our seventh hole because we're trying to get 9 in. And the storm came in, and her husband kicked us out of the house after 9 holes we put in their wall because she thought there was mold back there. That was a couple years ago. Okay, it doesn't happen all the time, but if you have a house that has an interior vapor barrier problem. Now let's move on move on to dew point problems, okay? And so house problems when dew point is reached. Dew point is when you get condensation. You know, when you have your Scotch glass in the summer and there's this dripping water. Well, that's a dew point. Well, that happens in your house too. So when you got moisture on your windows, man, you screwed up. You better figure it out. Usually it'll happen on northeast side first. And when you got moisture on your windows, you got to figure out where that moisture, what's causing it, what is the moisture generator, because you're rotting out your house. The windows are condensating, and so is stuff in the wall that we can't see, right? And then you got the bugs moving in, the wood destroying insects, and then the odor starts coming in, and the rot, the deterioration. So, you know, and remember we talked earlier, you know, our houses today are capacitors, and we said that they don't hold a lot of moisture. So you know, the old houses, it was a lot easier. These new houses, and then we put new windows in, and we get more efficient furnaces, and we add more insulation in our homes. So we're changing it. Now, sometimes you get lucky, and you can actually see. You know, a lot of times home inspectors will say, oh, that roof's messed up, you got mold in the attic. Like, how do you know that? You ever even been in a house? I go, look, you've got sheathing that's uplifting. When that happens, that means these boards are moving up. Why are they moving up? Because there's moisture. If there's moisture, there's mold. And a lot of times you could just walk outside and see a roof and know the house got a problem without even getting in the house. So here you can see how you got the mold. And by the way, when the humidity goes in the attic, the wood expands and causes nails to start popping. So that's a whole other set of problems. So now you got nails popping out of your roof because you screwed up one day and had a humidity problem. So now you might have leaks 10 years from now because the nail's starting to wedge out. Think about it. When the wood gets wet, it expands. And when the sun hits, it gets hot. It shrinks the wood, and the nails start popping up, and they start coming through your shingles. We're back to the attics. If you see attics with little black spots like that, that's water dripping off the nail ends, okay? And this is, you can see the frost, okay? And you can see how it's cold, and that's, I'm just calculating the dew point. So here's a Lake Erie summer cottage, okay? And they want to blame the window, Pella. They want to blame the siding people. They want to blame the builder. They want to blame everybody. So I go up there, and it doesn't take long for me to figure it out. I'm like, okay, it's a southern, oh, you must be getting a lot of rain from the lake. Yeah, of course you're getting rain from the lake, but maybe that's not the problem, okay? They look, it's leaking in the basement. Look, these ceiling tiles keep getting wet, and water's dripping in. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, oh, it's leaking. I'm like, wait a minute. There's water in the duct. There's a duct right there. The water's leaking in the duct and leaking through these joints. Well, how's the water getting in the duct? So, you know, they're going to pay me a lot of money, so I kind of knew what it was. But I went outside anyways, and I did my little spray test, and guess what? It wasn't the siding. And by the way, these Pella windows they're defective windows. We'll talk about those a little bit later and how they fail. But they weren't leaking, and that wasn't leaking. And so we go, and they had a humidifier. Oh, okay, now we're talking moisture generator. Oh, they had ventless fireplaces. Ventless fireplaces produce water and CO2 very bad. You don't want these things in your house, okay? They will ruin your house. They'll make you sick, okay? That I know a lot of people will yell at me for that, but that's the bottom line. And so she had two of these. Oh, and what else did she have? Hey, Maureen, how you doing? She had big, heavy curtains. Well, that's the problem. So the water was condensating on the window, dripping down the wall. And it was, you could see the stains on the curtains from the condensation caused by the ventless heaters and the humidifiers in the house. And there was a duct, there's a floor duct, not here, but a little bit over, and it was getting in the duct and leaking in the basement. Okay, and you could see, so the real problem was she was creating the humidity and the water was running down, staining this, dripping down into her basement. Okay, so what else causes moisture intrusion? Okay, HVAC equipment, we just said ventless fireplaces, foundation, siding, windows, plumbing leaks, gutters, people, and interior coverings. We're going to talk all about this. Now, HVAC. If your heating system isn't balanced, it's going to be a problem. We talked about that negative pressure. There's another problem. You could have flue spillage, okay? And we're going to do a couple examples of that in a minute. And then basically, if you put supply ducts, those are the heat ducts. A lot of these homes have heat ducts in the attics. Think about this for a minute. The heat duct's in the attic. And if it's leaking, it's a non-conditioned space. So now you're melting snow and you're getting icicles, and the ice is leaking in your house. You got to call your insurance company. Or the other way around, it's sucking air, from the hot space has caused you a lot of energy. So putting furnaces and ductwork in attics and non-conditioned spaces is not a good idea. Not a good idea. I think all our heating systems and ductwork should be put in conditioned spaces, or make them conditioned, or at least go up there and seal them with furnace tape and add insulation on top of that, all right? So we'll talk about some flue spillage. Well, here's a bird's nest. Well, how's the flue going to work? This bird's nest actually killed a 32-year-old in Akron. So this was a bad bird. He killed somebody, and she died. I was an expert witness in this particular case. But bird's nests are a problem. So check your chimneys. Make sure, especially those gas fireplaces you have, where your vents are right on the side of the house. You check those out. Those birds like to move in there, especially if the screen is bad. And you want to make sure your venting is good. Now I'm going to do a whole show, one of these, maybe next week, about furnaces and drafting and combustion analysis, but we're not going to do that today. So low chimney draft. In other words, if the air doesn't go up the chimney from your gas-fired appliance like your water heater and your furnace, it goes back down. It's a real problem, okay? And if you got too much chimney draft, in other words, it's just too much. That just is bad because that causes the same kind of problem. It's got to be the magical numbers 0.01 to 0.02 water inch columns, and you can use your hand. Some people use a lighter to check. Now, this is how you know if you have a problem. Obviously you're not going to go by draft gauges and drill holes and do all the stuff I do. But you can easily just look at your furnace, man. If you got black rusting here, this thing is spilling out. And if it's spilling out, you got carbon monoxide. And you wonder why you're getting sick. You're probably getting low-level carbon monoxide poisoning. So any rust stains you see on your furnace anywhere, it's a huge, huge problem, okay? Could be deadly. Okay, and then if you put your hand, you could feel it. Now, these are old furnaces. Now, most of us got the newer ones, and then you would do the combustion analysis on the outside, and I'll do that another week. So you don't want to have any rusting anywhere, okay? So if you've got rusting, that means that you've got incomplete combustion. If you've got incomplete combustion, then the spillage, which is the fumes, have humidity or moisture, grains of moisture, really what it's got in it, aldehydes and, of course, carbon monoxide, and you start getting condensation and problems. And that also means you have incomplete combustion. And so all your vents have to be properly working. And sometimes, here's an example where I know you have a problem. If you go in a house, you smell your fireplace, you smell wood. Guess what? Your room is under negative pressure. Your cold air returns are sucked in that room, and your fireplace becomes a makeup air vent. And then you wonder why you got dust all over the house. From it's coming from your fireplace. And it's all about your heating system. So you want to make sure that your heating system is properly balanced. So a lot of things can cause poor drafting. Poor drafting meaning, that the fumes from your water heater and furnace go back in your house. And it could be your dryer could be causing it, or, a blower operation, or you've got some people buy those huge exhaust fans. I mean, I saw a guy buy one of those exhaust fans that you see in restaurants. I thought it was going to suck me out of the chimney, okay? I mean, that you can't do that. You can't create these kind of conditions in homes. And sometimes fireplaces do it because they have the stack effect, opening, closing windows. Windy days can do it. So carbon monoxide detector is very important. If you can't get a low-level one, and then pay attention. Put your hand there, or put a piece of, I showed you that glass. If that glass fogs up, then it's spilling. And a lot of times, it's not carbon monoxide because it's burning good. But it's still humidity. Not humidity, but it's grains of moisture. And, of course, we talked about the bird's nest or any type of restriction. Some of you guys have these defective pipes. These are no good. They have to be replaced. They leak. You can see these are your furnace pipes. They leak, okay, and you need to fix these. These are no good. These are these vents. And the only problem with these is they don't communicate. Hey, Ivan, how you doing? They don't communicate with the water heater, so you could actually have a carbon monoxide problem. If you see this on a water heater, rust staining on the bottom, that's the most deadliest thing you could have in the house. Be very careful. That's probably causing carbon monoxide, and you could be getting low-level carbon monoxide poisoning. Then you got people get all crazy, and they think they can put 10 fans on the house. I mean, I'm surprised this house didn't just suck up and fly up into the sky. There's way too many fans. Way too many fans. You like my toy? And so basically, you don't need all that, okay? So ventilation is important, but not excessive. Now, here we go. We got these people going around Cleveland selling this new technology. Here's the old, we know what this is, right? This is humidifier. That's a fan in a box. Some people call it, I don't want to say the name of it, but you guys know what it is. They add it with waterproofing systems. It's a small one. They're big. And what this does, it just sucks moisture out of your house. So I had fun with one of these one day, and you can see what they do. They put this thing right next to a sub pump that's not sealed. Remember we talked about that's a problem. You can't have non-sealed. So all it's doing is sucking moisture out of the sub pump or sucking from the basement. And I'm not going to do the movie, but I go outside in the middle of the winter and I fill up this garbage bag in like 3 seconds. So think about it. It's sucking hot air right out of your house. I'm not sure that's a good thing, right? I think if you just open a window, put a fan there, it would do the same thing. So you want to run a real dehumidifier in your house, not a fake one, a real one. Hey, me, how you doing? Now, this is probably the dumbest thing you could put in a house, in my book, especially in colonial design climate homes, and that is a ventless heater. Now, these people had mold because this will cause that. Now, we're going to call this the smoker. This will be a case. We're going to do a case right now. Ventless fireplaces, ventless heaters, ventless appliances, bad. Okay, and there's actually 3 or 4 states in the USA that outlaw them in livable spaces. So be careful. Here we go. We got a smoker, and basically they call us. There's mold in the attic. The mold guy fixes it, but then a mold comes back. They can't figure out why the mold's coming back, and so I go to this house and I use my thermal imaging camera, and the ceiling's wet. That's the ceiling. That's moisture in the ceiling. And I'm taking the temperature of the ceiling because I'm trying to calculate the dew point. And then I go into this room, and he basically has a ventless heater in his sunroom. And guess what? The guy smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day. So every time he goes into this room, the ventless heater creates humidity. This is the room. Look at the condensation on the windows. That's high, means not hi, hello. It means high condensation. And then he would open the door to his house. And remember, right, one of the rules we talked about earlier, high vapor pressure goes to low vapor pressure, right? So this has got lots of grains of moisture in this room, which is the sunroom that he smokes in, a pack of cigarettes a day. And he's got the heater, which is a ventless heater, causing humidity and carbon dioxide. So now he's probably going to get sick from the cigarettes, right? And every time he opens up his door, all the humidity goes into the house. And so he does this like 22 times a day. And that's his ashtray. So, he smokes a lot. So I go in the attic because we're going to find out what's causing it. So I do a temperature of the attic. There's your first insulation. We lift up the insulation. There's a second one. Moisture. It's getting wet because it's condensating. It's reaching a dew point. There it is, wet. And so that's where we figured out there's a mold growing. And not only that, but the mold was growing back. That's the paint job. That's for the mold guy that was there last year, and within a year it grew back. So when they tell you the mold don't grow back, you got to figure out your moisture problem. If the mold guy would have known that this was caused by a ventless heater in his sunroom, and he knew the guy smoked 22 cigarettes a day, and he knew that he opened that door 22 times a day, and the high vapor pressure went to low vapor pressure, and we talked about your attic access being a thermal bypass, a thermal bridge. It wasn't sealed. Remember, we talked about attic accesses have to be sealed, insulated, and weather stripped. The moisture went up to the attic, dew point formed, condensation with the snow on the roof caused the mold to grow right there. Okay, so you got to fix your moisture sources. There's another one: ventless heaters in basements, bad. Garage, bad. Okay, here's one where right out of the window, they want to blame this on it was a crummy window anyways, okay? It was a Pella, and it was rotting. But what really caused this window to rot is this thing in the garage. The ventless heater in the garage rotted the window, all right? And then here you got these builders. They build homes in the winter, and then what do? They put these things in their house. And these are propane, and they create humidity, and all of a sudden they're causing mold in the house before the house is even done. So you should not use these types of units indoors, okay? And I've seen people use these when they're working on vans and things like that in the winter or in the garage. You don't want to use the torpedoes. Their byproduct is high vapor pressure, vapor, which causes vapor pressure, lots of grains of moisture, and if it's burning really good, you're not going to have CO2. You'll have carbon dioxide, but high levels of carbon dioxide will make you tired and sleepy. Here's a house that the guy was drying out the basement because he was trying to get the drywall people in the winter, and I went upstairs and all the insulation was getting wet behind the insulation. All the sheeting was getting wet from that thing in the basement. So be careful. Okay, that's the same house. Dryer vents. You know what? Dryer vents should be 25 feet maximum. and you got to add in 5 feet for every 90 and 2.5 feet for every 45. So you add all that up, and if it's more than 25, it's too long, you need a booster fan, okay? And these builders don't put them in, and then they put these things in the walls where you can't get to them, and they get plugged up. And then it takes you twice as long to dry your jeans. So your dryer vents got to be done properly, they got to be connected properly, and sometimes they have to use the proper material. Okay, here's a dryer vent that's been covered up by the mulch. Now, how the hell is that going to work? So this dryer vent doesn't even work because the mulch guy added mulch, and actually the mulch is too high. It's actually touching the cedar siding. Here's a dryer vent in the garage with the filter. Oh, we'll use the dryer vent heat to heat the garage. Right. Not going to work, man. That's humidity. You're going to ruin your garage. You're going to ruin your attic. You're going to mold in your attic. You're going to rot out your windows. No, not a good idea. Okay, then you got the sock people. You know, they recycle their socks, and they want to use their hot air. And yeah, hey, me, I know, hey, I like you've been building your house. I've been watching you. You guys are like almost done, and you started like 3 days ago. Amazing. But anyways, you don't want to do this. Those are dryer vent contraptions. Stupid. Very stupid. Don't use them. Get rid of them. You want your vent to go outside. And those water traps, don't use those. Okay? This is too long. You can see how this is getting plugged up. Here's the one going into the garage with the sock. You can see the mold and mildew. And the garage is cold, right? So you're going to get condensation. You're going to get mold. You're going to find dew point. Here's the garbage can where he squished it from the garbage can. And you know what? Look what happens in the crawl space. It breaks apart. And now you got this airborne particulate, which is lint, right? And not only do you got lint, but you've got humidity and you've got mold. Okay, and there's your crawl space. And you wonder why the kids got asthma upstairs and why everybody's sick. All right, now here's you got, oh, let's just run it through the attic. How the hell is that going to work? That thing is like 80 feet long, you know, and you can't have dryer vents that long. Now this is tough. This is tough. This was in dryer vents, but these are 2 fans from the bathrooms. They couldn't figure out why we're having condensation in the house. And they took showers, and we did everything except use our brain. Then we looked at pictures on the outside, and we found out that they forgot to drill the holes because there was no vents in the roof. They weren't there. And we went, wait a minute. There's supposed to be 2 holes in the roof, and they weren't, and they forgot. So this stuff was blocked up. It wasn't working. There's some mold there, and the humidity was coming back in the house. All right, floods. Hey, you know what? You guys, if you got to pay your electric bills, you better have your battery backups if you got sub pumps, all right? Otherwise, bad things happen. Humidifiers, you know what? You can't be using those unless you know what you're doing. Most people leave them on, and it's a big problem. Be very careful. All right, we're going to hit foundation leaks. So, you know, foundation leaks. Your trees that are too close to your house are going to plug up your drain tile. When you plug up your drain tile, you're going to have hydrostatic pressure. And if you're going to have hydrostatic pressure, you're going to start to have walls cracking. If your walls aren't properly designed, if they're reinforced concrete, you're probably okay. But if they're masonry block 8 or 10 or 12 inches, and you don't have rebar in and more than 5 feet of fill, and you got Mr. Tree outside blocking because it was too close, it's in your drain tile, you're going to have a problem. And you're going to have cracks. Poor grading, especially under these dormers. Water's running towards your house. And by the way, mulch isn't grading repair, okay? There's a crack leaking through a foundation. You know, that's a problem, right? And then you got cracks where they shear, and people think they could, you know, seal them from the inside with caulk. Doesn't work, all right? And then you got to go check your crawl spaces once in a while, because the crawl spaces, you could have differential settlement, and that's going to cause water to get into the block, and then the block is going to become a moisture reservoir, and then that's going to disperse the moisture underneath the slab and throughout the house. Hey, Henry, how you doing? If you got concrete patios, below your patios, you better make sure they're waterproof or you're going to get deterioration and rot. Now, this is pretty funny. A lot of people have this crawl spaces, and so they try to figure out why they got mold in their house and why their house stinks. Well, guess what? There's a vapor barrier, piece of plastic. First of all crawl spaces should be conditioned crawl spaces. They should be heated, cooled, conditioned. They should have 100% sealed vapor barriers. They should be perimeter insulated only, not ceilings. They should have a dehumidifier heated. Okay, and what happens is these people put the vapor barrier, poly, the plastic sheet, right, in the wrong spot. So they put that down, and then they put the stone on top. Well, what do you think happens? It becomes a swimming pool in that stone. They don't even know it. And then water leaks in through the vents because people vent their crawl spaces, and you got water in there, and it becomes like a swimming pool underneath your house. You don't see it, but it's ruining your house. Okay, then you got people who put in don't go in their crawl spaces, or they put the plastic down. This got to be done right. This is no good. This is no good. What do you think could happen here if the gutter overflows? That's a vented crawl space. Bad, bad. You want a conditioned crawl space. You want to seal that up. You want to put insulation perimeter walls. You want 100% sealed vapor barrier. You want a dehumidifier. You want to heat it and cool it. You want to treat your crawl space like your living room, man. Right here, the water's going to leak into that and flood your crawl space. That water's going to get underneath this plastic here, and it's going to become a reservoir, and you're going to have big problems. Okay, here's another one. You start digging. I like to dig and find moisture. Oh, we found some water. I dug about a foot down, and it was all flooded water just underneath all this stuff. All right? And this is bad, too. You know, if your cold area turns aren't connected, you want to connect them. Okay, this is called the Cleveland drop. Bad idea. That's how they build homes in the old days when they have gravity systems. When you have this system, that doesn't work. That's got to be connected. Again, here's Mr. I forgot to put in a battery backup sub pump. Go in your crawl space. A lot of people don't go in their crawl spaces. And, you know, you got to go in there and look at it. Don't leave your junk down there. This crawl space had all kind of problems. You know, there's your dryer vent that was leaking. They left an oil tank down there. I mean, just, you know, and this one, actually, the home inspector didn't even go into. He said it was not accessible, and then people bought this house, and here they got an oil tank in there. It's leaking oil everywhere. There's moisture. So, you know, at least you got to stick your camera down in there, and if you can't get in there, you got to tell your client, hey, get me an access. Get a carpenter there, put a hole. We got to get down here. Anybody who buys a house that doesn't go in their crawl space is an idiot. An idiot, okay? Here's a crawl space here. These are typical in Cleveland in the older homes, and they don't put in vapor barriers. Now, sometimes we don't need them. They're so dry. Like a lot of those in Ohio City are so dry that, you know, usually we have a termite problem there more than a moisture problem in Ohio City. But then if you go out to the east side, you go to Twinsburg, and you got a crawl space, or Orange in those areas, or Vermilion, or Huron, it's a problem because of the moisture, and you need to have a vapor barrier down. Here's a lady calls us up, and she's sick as a dog, mold everywhere, and she's got asthma and all kind of stuff. We go to the house, we start outside, and basically, poor grading, it's sopping wet everywhere outside. Well, guess what? She's a slab house. She's got ducts. So she let us open up her ductwork in her furnace. I had my little scissors, and I cut a big hole in here. Don't worry. We patched that. We just patched it up, you know. But look what's in the hole. That's the ductwork underneath her house. Oh, look at that. I mean, it was nasty. I mean, every time she was like growing stuff underneath her house, and bacteria and mold and mildew. And it was just, you know, the ducts got full of water. You know, you can't have water in your ducts, okay? And you know what you could also do? You could take a camera, just your regular camera, your phone camera, take a picture of it. And you could see, when you see this with your camera, you can see like 1, 2, 3. These are like marks, man, like a tree. And you can see how this floods. And it probably bubbles. You could have little boat races with mice on them, you know. And you could probably have fun down there, little speed boats. It's a problem. You know how many houses have this problem? Lots of them. And these people get sick, and they get asthma, and then they get carpets, and then they have dust mites, and then they throw a couple dogs in there. They got saliva going everywhere. I mean, it's not a good thing. You want to control your moisture. You want to control the moisture in your ducts. You want to make sure you don't have damp rides is another one. We'll talk about that in a minute. And yeah, thanks. Here's the interior waterproofing system, and you can see here they put the plastic up, and it's okay. I'm okay with these. I couldn't stand them for a while, but the problem is it holds water back, and a lot of times you get dew point condensation on the back. It does go down, and if you can do an exterior one, I recommend it. But sometimes you got to do the interior one. Just do it properly. And when there's moisture trapped in, and all of a sudden your terracotta tile starts to disintegrate, right? And it's starting to get weak and break down and fail. All right. Now, I know some of you watching this right now have this design, and you're probably not going to think about it, but I get these calls from these kind of homes, and they say, it smells like mold. And usually you smell it right when you walk in the door, and it goes away. Or you go down the basement steps, you smell it, it goes away. Well, guess what? You got to look at it. See this design here? There, she's calling up. She's like, holy shit, Marco's here. Oh, no, Marco here. You know, deal killer. That's what they call me when I find problems. They blame it on me. They should be blaming it on the house, not me. It's the house. So this thing here has got the 2 columns, right? Now check this out. Okay, nobody thinks about this. A lot of inspectors don't look, but guess what? That's not just a piece a thing that's sticking out of your house. There's something down there. There's a foundation there. Oh, look at that. It sticks out of your house. It's got its own foundation, and sometimes it's full of stone. Think about this for a minute. It's full of stone. It's outside. It's cold, right? And your basement's warm and humid, and it doesn't have to. You don't even need a moisture generator. So remember, we talked about vapor diffusion. We talked about high vapor pressure goes to low vapor pressure, right? So the humidity goes from your basement into this little room, which is outside. It's very cold, and it forms dew point and condensates, and you get rot. And there's your smell. And sometimes these are hollow. And if they're hollow, then you see bear cans and stuff down in them. And you can take your camera. Now, this one was filled up with stone, but it sticks out. And the best thing to do with this is pull the insulation out in your basement and expose this and let the heat get in there to dry it and run a dehumidifier. And these are the front house columns. They're also a problem more with houses facing the south. That house is facing east. It wasn't so bad. But you could see what happened to this house. There was her mold problem. Here's another one. And here you can actually see there's a cavity down in here, and it goes down, to the footer. And a lot of times there's water. You throw a stone and you can hear it splash. This one here was different. Then this is another one. You can see there's some stuff down here, but sometimes there's water. And there's your water generator. There's your odor problem. It's on those front end columns, and this is on brand new houses. Okay. So here we'll do one more case, and we'll move on to some better stuff. But here we're gonna the HUD appraiser says the house is fine. The guy buys the house, our clients. They don't get a home inspection, because the realtor says you don't need one. The house has been rehabbed, and they smell gas. They shut the gas off, because there's a gas leak. Nobody checked it. But the problem is when they shut the gas off, it got cold. When it got cold, then they turned on the gas, and look what happened. 3 days later, the whole house got full of mold. And the reason it got full of mold, I came to this house and water was leaking out of the house because they turned the gas off, being cold. And there was humidity in water. You're going to see the humidity was you can see the mold growing on the wall. This is within 3 days. 3 days. Okay. And let me skip all this here. And you can see there's the humidity on the window. Guess what? They had water in the ducts. And that was their duct. Nobody checked that. Look at the floor's all nice and pretty, and the walls are done, but there's water in the duct. They shut the gas off. It got cold. They turned on the gas. The house walls are cold. Boom. Condensation occurred, and mold. You had mold amplification, fungal reservoirs. Okay. Sometimes, I do a house. I go to this house. This guy has a home inspection, and a home inspector says no crawl space, slab house. Well, yeah, the house was slab, except for this room, which had a trap door underneath the carpet, which was flooded. And you can see, again, how many times it flooded. Okay, and this guy, they had a mold company do the house twice. Twice they did the mold in this house. Okay, crawl spaces. When you got water dripping, condensation, you got a humidity problem. Take care of that, okay? Now, slab houses. This is, people think that slab houses, there's no gaps. No. They're all got gaps, most of them. And what happens is when they have the soil here, they pour the concrete. There's plastic there. They put the plastic down. But what happens is they never compact this soil here. And so after 10 years, it settles. And there's your duct. There's your duct that goes through here, and there's a gap. So the hot air goes into the space underneath your hole. There's a kitchen. And you can see how it's cold and dripping water. And all of a sudden, it's forming a dew point underneath your kitchen and living room. And then this is picking up the moisture, and this becomes a humidifier. And all of a sudden, this causes mold in your attic. So check your slabs. Sometimes they're hollow underneath. And make sure that these things are sealed going all the way through your concrete, and there's no water getting, no air gaps going be underneath there, because the soil underneath this slab has settled, and there's a gap there. That's also a place where insects like to travel. Downspouts. You got to have your downspouts fixed. They can't leak. If they leak, it's a problem. Look at it. What do you think is going to happen with this downspout? Yep, it's going to leak in the house. There it is, right there, leaking behind the insulation in the basement. Okay, and you know what? You got reinforced concrete walls. Mija, you got reinforced concrete, so you're going to get shrinkage cracks. Shrinkage cracks happen usually every 4, 6, and 8 feet. It's a normal construction practice. Okay, concrete, it hydrates and shrinks. And when it shrinks, sometimes it leaks. So you got to make sure that your grading is proper, your gutters are proper. You got to make sure, hey, Charlotte, hey, John, how you doing? And Harry, thanks for coming on tonight. If you missed the beginning of it, I will put this up later, and I'll also put it on YouTube. Now, if you got shrinkage cracks and reinforced concrete foundation, this is not brick, this is concrete. You can epoxy inject them. You don't have to do that, but if it leaks, you got to do it. Okay. Sometimes you have to do this. It costs about $500. Don't let one of these waterproofing companies come over and sell you 20 grand worth of unnecessary crap when you could fix the crack for $500. Okay. Very cheap. There's epoxy injection. And first of all, you do is you stop the water from leaking. This was a gutter that was leaking, okay, a downspout. And you're going to call a waterproofing company. They're going to tell you 20 grand. They're going to make you sign a contract. And before you know it, you're going to have one of those machines in your house sucking your basement. So you want to think about it before. And you know what you ought to do before you hire a waterproofing company or somebody like that? You want to call an inspector, a home inspector. And, you don't have to call me. You don't have to call me if you don't want. You call your realtor's favorite guy, whatever. Doesn't matter. But call him and let a home inspector tell you what he thinks causing the moisture. Most of them are pretty good. Ashy guys are good. Of course, I'm the best. I think I am. No, I'm not. There's a lot of guys just as good as me. And you got to call them before you sign that contract because you're going to regret it, okay? All right, caulking. Here we go. Brick. Brick expands, brick grows. And so you can see how they keep caulking. It's because the brick keeps growing. And you get these gaps, so water gets in there. So, brick does, when you build a house with brick, you're supposed to use expansion joints, control joints. A lot of times they don't use it all, right? And you get cracks. You want to seal them up. And you're not really supposed to do caulking, but in this case, yes. If you see mushrooms growing out of your siding, you got a problem. That means it's rotting. It's rotting, man. You got leaks up somewhere. This is stucco, EIFS, okay? Exterior insulated finish systems, synthetic stucco. Guess what? They never put it up right. They are doing it today, but thousands, I'm going to say hundreds of thousands of homes, there's no drainage plan, no rain screen. They're all rotting. And this company is called Drive It. They went out of business. And now the new problem is going to be the culture stone, which we totally talked about earlier. And there it is. There's your EIFS rotting out the house. Okay. There's some more EIFS. And there's remember we talked about capillary and we talked about surface tension. Here's your gutter. It's a round gutter. The water hits the gutter. It's round. Bad idea. And the surface tension just sucks it right into the wall. And here it is. And this girl that worked back here, her feet would get wet every day. And you can see the thermal image of the water leaking in the wall from the surface tension from that gutter overflowing. Okay. Here's your Hardie board. Now, this is nice stuff. Architects love it, And the problem was Hardie board, when they put this out, they didn't back prime it, the back. In other words, it wasn't painted. And so there's surfactant that leak out of that. And if you don't paint the back of it, then the surfactants leak out and they cause damage to the Tyvek. And then the Tyvek becomes hydrophobic and it sucks in water and house rots out. So today, Hardie board does send them painted, and you can't find that information on the internet because they pulled it all off. Gee, I wonder why. And then another thing is when you put the stuff up and you cut it, you're supposed to have a paintbrush and all the cuts, all the butt joints, the butt joints that come together, you got to paint that, man. You got to paint that. You can't have it. And today they're actually putting flashing strips in between them. Okay, so Hardie board is still a problem, and sometimes these newer Hardie board systems are going to have high maintenance. Here's one that wasn't back primed. See, it wasn't painted. You're supposed to paint those edges, and that's supposed to be painted. An early system, there's tons of them out there. Okay, and you can see with the thermal image how it's rotting out. Okay, and then we talked about a little bit about I want to throw this back in there, but we talked about the cultured stone. See that? There's moisture trapped in here. Okay. And how's it in there? You can see I put a cup of water in there and went right inside. And so there's no drainage. Okay, now, here's a house, very expensive brick house, maybe 20 years old. The gutter's overflowed. You can see the water's running down the side. Well, think about what's going to happen. Remember, we talked earlier, mortar joints are like sponges, man. They're going to suck water in. So guess what happened to this very expensive house? You got it. We went in there and we took all the stuff off the inside. They said our house smells like mold, and the mold guy showed up and couldn't find it, and nobody could figure it out, and it was pretty obvious. It was just the gutter overflowing. But look, they didn't put in they put in that tar paper, and it wasn't properly. The rain screen wasn't done right, so it rotted out, and you can see how the water's been leaking through here all the time. And I'm surprised they didn't start shorting stuff out in the house. Okay, there's your house. So gutters and downspouts have to have end dams. They can't overflow, they can't leak, or bad things happen, man. And this stuff, it's going to make your house stink. And some people have houses that smell like mold, and they leave their house and they smell like mold, but nobody wants to tell them they smell like mold, because their sweaters smell like mold, and their clothes smells like mold, and their suits smell like mold, but they don't know it because they think it's normal. But they go to a party, everybody smells you, man. They know you smell. Oh, here comes Joe. He smells like mold, but they're not going to tell you. All right, here we go for you high-rise people. You got those brick, and you're trying to figure out why you live on a bottom unit, why your unit stinks. Well, it's not rocket science. The brick is going to suck in water, and as the water goes down, it builds up, because these old buildings don't have weep holes. And here's the bottom units, and they had vinyl wallpaper, and they couldn't figure out why their place stunk and why they had mold. Well, because the pressure is going down. Remember, we talked about gravity, and then we got solar diffusion. Remember the solar vapor diffusion? It rains, and the sun hits the building, and it pushes through high vapor pressure to low vapor pressure. Then you had vinyl wallpaper, air conditioning here, moisture pushing in this way, and you get mold behind the wallpaper. All right, here we go. Bricks. Bricks are supposed to have weep holes, and if you don't have weep holes, it's a problem. Now, I'm doing my little test again, and look at this. These are a little cut design. That's what a weep hole is supposed to look like. So the water behind the brick supposed to have a rain screen of some sort, and then flashing, and then holes for it to leak out, not leak in, right? And there's different types. That's that's good. Now, that's not good. This is a house that didn't have weep holes. They sold the house. It had drop ceilings. The house stunk. And they hired me, and I went out and looked at it. I pulled the drop ceiling panels, and I saw this NASA engineer invented this little design so it was controlled, so the water would drip on this little thing, go in this little pan, and evaporate into the house. But what's happening is this was rotting and smelling up the house. So weep holes cause problems. Now, here's another house. This is a Vermilion house. This whole house is completely rotting. The whole wall was moving, okay? And you can see how this whole wall is all rotted because the brick isn't draining right, but the crawl space was flooded. I put my thumb there and pushed the whole wall in. I mean, there's nothing left in there. You can see, you could probably punch your hand through that wall. It was that rotted. These are problems because they all leak, especially if you go to like some of those gated communities up in Aurora got these things. Those $1 million houses, they're not going to tell you about this problem. But you know what? Not one of them is built right. These older ones were done in the 40s and 50s in University Heights, and you would think the builders would figure this out. No, these guys are idiots. And basically, this can't possibly work. This is a hole. It's got a lintel. There's no weep hole here, and you're supposed to have a nested lintel. So the water, I call this a brick column. This gets full of water. It gets sucked in the back, and it goes into the window, and there's a steel plate in here, and leaks inside. And then they come out here, and they caulk it, and they show you on their disclosure, look, we caulked it. We fixed the leak. No, it ain't fixed shit. You can't fix this leak, okay? And some are a bigger problem. These are the $1 million houses over there in Aurora. Tons of them got this. Now, if they're on the east side, you're lucky. But if they're on the west side, south side, they're problems, okay? And here's what's missing. This is the gutter. This is the gutter here that's missing. Because when the water hits it, it's got to drain, and then they put weep holes. Weep holes are little teeny holes. They drill, and it drains out. So you got this thing here missing, and the weep hole's missing. Guess what? If you don't build it like this, it's going to leak. And you know what? 90% of them, Ohio homes, this is not built right. It's one of the biggest leakers, and it's not on every house. It's just, sometimes, like I said, if it's on most of our rain, wind-driven rain, comes from the west and comes from the south, and that's a big problem. And here it is, and you're in here. This is painted, so you look at this ceiling, and it's a nice texture. That's a new texture. Gee, it's not rocket science. It ain't rocket science that this leaks, and these people are lying to you, and they're saying, oh, in the disclosure, yeah, it leaked, and we fixed it, and they put caulk on the outside. That's not going to work. It's going to leak again. So I just tell my clients, hey, man, you're going to have to fix this every couple of years. Don't put your piano down here, okay? You can still buy the house, all right? Because when it leaks, it dries up. It's not like it leaks forever, so it dries up pretty quick. All right, so we talked a little bit about this, and this is the brick solar diffusion. Remember, the sun comes out. We gave you this example earlier with if you want to, I don't want to repeat it all, but that was the vapor diffusion with the vinyl wallpaper, right? And if you look at the vinyl wallpaper and you pull it up, that's what happens. Because vinyl wallpaper is an interior vapor barrier. Remember we talked about interior vapor barrier? We talked about the poly with the house and how it was rotting out those rooms. Well, this is the same thing. It's an interior vapor barrier. And you don't want exterior vapor barriers either, okay? You want your house to breathe, all right? So if part of your house isn't breathing, bad things happen. Hey, Ron, how you doing? You guys don't see this? Yeah, Ron, I think people are watching it. All right, maybe it's your TV or whatever. So we got moisture going through windows and doors. Let's talk about this. Doors, you always go in the basement, go underneath these doors. Half these doors leak. They weren't put in right. There's a couple of these brands, and you can see here where I pull up the carpet and it's all rotted out, and so it's a problem. And you got doors you can stick your finger through. Well, they're going to be leaking, okay? And here these you've got moisture in here. You can see my infrared image here. This is the southern exposure, and it gets wet, okay? Here's a door. There's no cover. It's just getting hit with the rain. It's the southern. There's no covering over the door. Plus the door's put in wrong, and it's all rotted out, and it stinks, okay? And there's a rot underneath it. Marvin windows, they're defective because of pilt. Now, we don't have a lot of those, but they're mostly up in Westlake, and I'm going to bet that most of them have been replaced by now, okay? But Marvin windows, you want to be careful. The new Marvins are good. These sliding doors, if you can't put sliding doors in the dirt like that, that's not going to work. That's going to rot out. So you got to put your stuff in properly. Bondo repair, I don't think so. You know there's a big problem, okay? And here you can see how this brand new house is not. How's this going to work? This is going to leak, man. They're building this addition. I go there and inspect it before they're finished. And I'm like, this is going to rot the whole house out. The guy didn't put the window in right. He put the Tyvek in wrong. Everything's wrong here. There's nothing right here. And you can't make this stuff up. You got to know what you're doing when you're flashing windows, okay? You got mushrooms growing in your house. That's a problem. That means it's all rotting out. You got dew point. You got condensation problems, all right? Okay, so let's talk about these windows. So these are aluminum-clad windows. Pella Prolines had major lawsuits. I think they're all done with, and they do rot different ways. Okay, because these windows are only like 8 years old. All right, and there's the manufacturer that sells them basically says that they rot out, and they want to blame it. They want to blame it on somebody other than them, okay? And so this is like the main reason they say is because the builder doesn't paint the wood windows. They say, well, they didn't build it and paint the bottoms of the windows. Here, see this? They're going to blame this rot because the builder didn't paint it. He's supposed to paint it. Well, that's a poor excuse, okay? It shouldn't be rotting in 8 years no matter what. There's the bottom. The builder didn't paint the bottom. Let's blame him for it. There's mold. It's rotting, okay? That's not. So then the builder says, well, wait a minute. It's not, the rot doesn't occur because I didn't paint it. And he says the rot occurs because the joints leak, right? They leak at the joints and it rots out. So he wants to throw back to the manufacturer. So you push on this, and you can see the joints, the water gets in there, the window rots. He wants to blame it on the window, right? So, and by the way, when you see visible moss growing out of your window, it's a problem. It's a problem. Okay, so, and sometimes the moss is hidden inside this shell here. And these are the Pella Pro lines completely rotting out. The sliding doors all went, okay, and the building science, here's the building science theory. Well, remember we talked about the condensation. High interhumidity causes it, okay? And so the condensation hits the window, the water drips down, and it rots it out, right? And so that's what's causing the rot. And there's an example of that happening. The water condensates, hits the window, rots out the window. And see how it's rotting out? That's a brand new window, 7, 8 years old. That's a door that's about 12 years old. Okay, now, this is what really, I believe, happens. What happens is you got high humidity. So remember we talked about that, high humidity. We talked about humidifiers. We talked about ventless heaters. We talked about supplements that aren't covered. We talked about basement leaks. All those things, right? The moisture generators. And you got high, remember we talked about how water moves. Vapor pressure, pushing. It's cold outside. It's pushing through. Vapor diffusion through the wood. And as it goes through the wood, it forms condensation. When it forms condensation, it's cold. It freezes. And then this bond breaks. And once the bond breaks and the water hits the window from the outside, it leaks in and rots out the window. That's what's happening. And it's happening to all of them. Aluminum-clad windows are a problem. Now, I do tell my clients to caulk them, okay? Vinyl-clad windows aren't as big of a problem. Anderson had some problems with a couple of the windows. And this is not a window show. Maybe we'll do one. I do these every week, by the way. This is my 5th one or 6th one I've done. all the videos. These are all pretty much house related. You know, every once in a while I'll throw some other stuff in. I did one on Fukushima. That's got 11,000 views, just so you know. You might want to check out the Fukushima one I did. I'm going to redo another one with I did one with all the electromagnetic fields and radio frequencies. That is scary stuff about grounding your bed and cancer and all that bad stuff that happens from what's happening to us in our homes today. And you might want to check that one out. Anyways, back to the windows. And so the windows are rotting. So here we'll do one more case, and we'll move on to some better stuff, some new stuff. Basically, all the humidity in the house, humidifiers, negative pressure, all going on. So the windows are condensating and it's rotting out. And basically, this house, there's your sub pump. It's not sealed. That's half-assed. You got to have a radon cover on her. This guy here has got two filters. Seriously, that causes so much pressure drop that your house doesn't even work that well. Two cold air heat turns with two high density medium filters. Bad idea. That's too much filtering. And then you got your humidifier. Okay, and so you got all this stuff causing problems. All right, so let's talk about roofs. So some roofs leak, you know, and you know, you got to make sure roofs aren't leaking. There's no holes in your roof. Make sure you don't have plants growing in your roof. Make sure you're not rippling your flat roofs and your rubber roofs, that you don't have any ballooning effect. You know, make sure it's not blistering and bubbling. That means there's moisture trapped underneath your roof. See that? There's moisture trapped underneath that house. It's trying to come out. All right? And make sure that the pitches are right and your flashing is correct. Okay? And then, of course, your shingles, you know, they're getting granulated. I mean, they don't last so long. And if there's lightning and you don't walk on your slate roofs, your cement roofs, or your asbestos roofs, check for the nails. We talked about the nails. Remember, we said if there's humidity and there's thermal bypass or thermal bridging, and you've got an attic access that is a sealed insulated weather strip, then you get humidity causing nails to pop. Remember that mold in the attic? We talked about that, and they come out and then they leak. Flashing leaks, chimney leaks. Okay, here's a chimney that's leaking, and you can see how it's designed. The water's hitting this and leaking inside the brick and running down the brick in the attic, but then it goes into the kitchen, and they had a problem down there. Cracks. You know, this is heat cracks. You know, that doesn't mean your fireplace is bad, but, you know, sometimes they absorb water. And then the tops of your chimneys, no one ever checks the tops out, but, you know, those are holes. The water's going to leak right in here and go into your brick, you know. So you got to always cap the tops. And I don't usually, I probably should go on all my roofs, and I don't. And so I do a lot more stuff than most inspectors, but I don't generally climb up on roofs unless I have to. And there might be one or two that I might miss with this, but I just put on my report, hey, you got to cap that and check that out. You know, I'll put it on there. Then you got these crazy chimneys that crack and they have all kind of problems. Gutters and downspouts. I know you guys like to buy those gutter cleaner things, but some of them just don't work. You just clean your gutters twice a year, okay? Then you get these things, and a lot of times the water just runs off of these. If it's a lot of water, they don't work, and then all of a sudden your basement starts leaking. Ice dams. I remember we talked about ice dams. Those are not natural occurrences. You got to stop the heat loss into your unconditioned attic space. And the number one thing are the attic access panels and pull down stairs. Number two thing are all those can lights. All those can lights you got in your cathedral ceilings, they better be insulated can lights or you're going to have problems. Hey, Jay, how you doing? And here we go, the gutter sponge. Who thinks of this stuff is beyond me, but the gutter sponge, how's that going to work? You got a gutter sponge, the granules fill up the gutter sponge, then the gutter sponge doesn't work, it gets wet and you get moss growing, then the water hits the moss, it feeds the moss, it gets bigger and the gutters overflow, your basement leaks, you got a foundation crack. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Okay, there's your gutter sponge, stupid. You make sure your gutters are the right size. They build these bigger homes than these little ass gutters, okay? Make sure you might have to have a bigger gutter, okay? Then you got to make sure that your gutters are properly sloped. If they don't slope right and your brick's getting wet, well, guess what? That water's getting sucked into the mortar joints. Then you got gutters that are blocked up because trees. So here's a rainstorm and the gutter and the downspouts overflowing, and naturally that's going to leak in your basement. So you might have to snake your drain tile. You might have to snake your storm lines. You might have to snake your sanitary lines. Okay, and if the tree out front, a lot of times the trees in your front house block the drain tile. Maybe it doesn't block the sewer, so you don't think it's a big deal, but your drain tile's backing up and your basement starts to leak. And if your basement's finished, then your basement starts smelling musty because you got drywall on it, you know. So make sure you run a basement dehumidifier. So here we got a downspout that's, you know, okay, let's move it far away from your house. I guess that works. It's a tripping hazard. Okay. Another thing is, here's a neighbor's downspout. He ran his so far that it was puddling in this guy's house. Well, you can't do that. You can't have your water running into somebody else's house. Here's a neighbor. Let me just dump it in his basement so let his basement leak. You got to be careful. You might have to dig. You might have to dig and connect to a storm line. Okay. Here's a basement. The guy showed me all the leaks. He paints it all up, and then I'm like, well, you think that downspout's far enough? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's getting better. There we go. Now we're talking. Let's move it way out here. All right. Ice dams, we talked about that. Seal, you want to buy sealed sub pumps, 100% sealed up. Okay, now your electrical boxes, basically, this should be flipped this way, okay? And it's not sealed, so water gets in there and goes down underground. It's a problem that could cause a short. Okay, you know what? Bad idea. This is somebody's fireplace. They might forget to take this off, you know? And then here we got the construction that's done improper. You know, if you're going to put up Tyvek, it's got to be done right. It's got to be spliced. It's got to have overlap. It's got to have Tyvek tape. It's got to be done right. Okay, and a lot of these guys don't do it right. And if you don't, for example, if the house wrap, this is house wrap. It's supposed to bead water away, right? And remember we talked earlier about the surfactants from the Hardie board would cause it not to be able to bead, so it sucks water in. And if this is exposed to sun for more than like a month or two, then it's not going to work either. So these people build these homes with this Tyvek, and this Tyvek's like 8 months old. It ain't no good, man. You got to take that off and redo it. They're redoing it here. See the new Tyvek, the old Tyvek? That is not going to work. It's not going to drain the rain because it was exposed to the sun for too long. So I would say 2-3 weeks, a month, but not a summer, okay? Insulation, okay, and we're getting down close here. And here's a house, brand new house. They forget to put the insulation in, but they couldn't figure out why there's mold and mildew. Well, what was happening, it was cold on the other side, and there's humidity in the house, and you can see the thermal imaging. And this is where the mold's going to grow, right there, because it's cold. There was missing insulation there. Here's one where the insulation fell down, okay? And it wasn't mold yet, but you can see the temperature is 51 degrees. It fell down in the wall. So whoever put the insulation up in this house didn't staple it up right. So this is thermal testing. Here's and here's the big one. People build new homes, all right? And here's your big problem. You build a new house. You got the drywall. You got the water. Your basement foundation is wet. You got the water hydrating because your cement's hydrating. It's evaporating in the house. Everything, it's just tons of water, man. And then you finish the house, and then you know what happens? The mold starts growing. Because guess what? The builder didn't dehumidify it. So when you build a new home, you got to start dehumidifying. The minute you close up those windows, man, get those dehumidifiers going and start pulling the water out. Because all those paints are going to dry up. And all the building materials are going to dry up. All right? And you're going to have too much humidity, and you're going to have a problem. Okay? We talked about vapor barriers. Here's a vapor barrier in a basement. And they, like Strongsville likes to use these. The only problem with these, they're not vapor barriers. They're called vapor retarders. And that's about perm ratings. And we're not going to get into that because this is supposed to be a home, for the regular people. But you put plastic on the wall. There's high indoor humidity, okay? And you can see what's happening here. It's all wet. It's very cold. And that's the insulation we're pulling off. That's cold. And you can see the moisture. And if there's a humidifier or something that isn't sealed, here's when it's wet. There's my moisture meter. Look, it's wet. And it's wet. It starts dripping down. And then what do? You guys call Ohio State and they waterproof your house. All you had to do is turn on a dehumidifier. Okay, and here's condensation. Okay, we talked about the wallpaper. You do not want to use wallpaper in homes. Plumbing leaks. That's me. Okay, here's a crawl space with plumbing problems. Well, what do you think? Sewers backing up, tree issues, dryer vent issues. Then we got the plumbing issues, dishwasher leaks. And you see these cleanouts, that means there's a problem. New cleanouts mean there's tree roots and they're always snaking the drains. And so you can always check with the city, and when you see these holes, they actually put holes in pipes. And, this isn't a crawl space. This is not the way you snake a drain. Plus you got gases leaking out here. It's going to make you sick. Then you got furnace upstairs draining into the crawl space. Bad idea. These are plumbing leaks. Then you got plumbing leaks from shower pans. These old houses, man, they don't last forever, and that's $2-3 grand to fix that problem. And the tiles in your showers, these are old Florida tiles, and they leak, and the grout leaks, and they cause rotting like this. And so you want to check your plumbing, you want to check your tiles, you want to check, your shower surrounds. Swimming pools in houses, stupid idea. If you're going to have a swimming pool in a house, you better have a special room between the pool and your house. Otherwise, every time you open that door, your house is going to get full of humidity and you're going to rot out your house. You're going to mold in your attic. This is a bad idea. So swimming pools have to be separate entities, separate rooms away from the house. And you might have to have like a pressurized room where you go into one room and then you go into your house. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. Same with hot tubs. Same with indoor basement. People put jacuzzis in their basements. If you're going to do that, that's a big pool of water evaporating in your house. When you buy your house, last thing you want to do, here's a guy that buys a house, okay, and the lake is over here. He buys a house, okay, right here. These are houses here. Well, what do you think? All the people's shit, they're flushing all the toilet, there's all Avon and Avon Lake, Sheffield, and here's your sewer plant, and there's a break right here. What's going to happen to all these houses when that breaks? These houses all got flooded all the way up to the top of step full of water. So you never want to buy your house on a downstream of a system to a plant because you're the lowest point. If something goes bad, those people are still flushing their toilets. They're going to end up in your house. And here's a guy's toilet. I mean, this went on for like 3 days to a point where it's just like gushing up. I mean, because all the pressure. You know what? If you buy a piece of land and it says you're living in the lower village, well, what do you think it's called lower village for? Okay, you're asking for problems. Just like the people like to buy houses on cliffs, or people like to buy houses below sea level. Okay, it's going to flood. You live in a lower village, it's going to flood. Okay, so check out your flood maps. Here's a condominium. You got to think about it. Oh, you don't need a home inspection. Yeah, you do. The people here is 4 buildings on top of a garage. I'm looking at this drain. I'm like, lady, man, that drain's way too small. I calculate the water flow from all these gutters. No way does that work. No way. Well, that's how they fixed it. They put they in crawl space underneath. Think about this: 4 condominium units. Okay, this is in Brecksville off of Route 21, and this is how they fixed the water from dripping. But guess what? When you move the plastic, look what's happened to the structural supports holding the whole place up. This place is going to collapse, man. It's going to collapse. My client did not buy this house. Okay, you know what? If you're buying a house at the end of the street, and you're at the bottom of the street, well, the water's going to be running down. Okay, this is a house, a brand new house, and they had problems, and all these houses were here like 50 years ago. Well, why didn't they build a house here 50 years ago? Because it was bad. It was a bad piece of land. It was wet. That's why they didn't build it 50 years ago. But now they don't have any more land, so they're going to build a house in bad places. Be very careful when you see people building houses where they weren't before, because all the good places are gone. What's left is the bad places. So how bad is it? Well, here, all these people's water is going down here. Hydrostatic pressure underneath this brand new house, right? And this guy's got a sub pump, but he's pumping out too. And there's a new house, right? And here, you can see here, all these houses are older and they're dumping water this way and they're dumping it down to the house. And then you wonder why this house has got, the front door says wet, because there's condensation. Guess what? Water in the ductwork, okay? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say that we're kind of done here. This is going to be the end of this slide. This is one of my moisture shows. I didn't cover all of it. I do have... oh, by the way, if you guys are watching and you do have house problems, I do have a service for out-of-state people. Just Google, call Marco with a question, and a lot of times I could solve your house problem within 15 or 20 minutes. You can send me some videos. I'll ask you a bunch of questions. I've been doing this for 33 years. I'm pretty good at this stuff, and I could solve it on the phone. For out-of-towners, it's $29 for 15 minutes. If it gets longer than that, then it'll be a little bit more. But usually we can solve your problem. Up here in Cleveland, just give me a call. We'll shoot out there for your house problems, and give me a call. This is Marco. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Hey, Eric. Hey, Jay. Hey, Ron. And thanks, everybody, for being on today. I will put this on YouTube, and you can watch it again, and I'll probably leave it up there. You guys have a nice weekend. Take care. I'll be back next Sunday with another show at 8:30.